Without further ado, allow me to welcome our very distinguished and eminent speaker of tonight, Mr. SaiSatish Vedam. Mr. Vedam was most recently the Director of Product Management Oracle. He's the Senior Faculty Director of Programs and Chief Product Officer at the Institute of Product Leadership. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Vedam. Absolutely glad to have you with us tonight. Please take
Thank
the
you so
session
much,
forward.
Shama. Thanks for having me. Good evening, all of you. And again, a very, very happy and safe and peaceful 2021. I hope this year goes much better than 2020. It's been a wreck for many, many folks. So hopefully things go better. So, do you want me to begin the conversation, Shama, or is there any other announcement that you want to make?
Well, the only announcement is please, audience, actively participate and ask as many questions that you want to our speaker. You have 1 hour, 60 minutes, make the best of it. That's the only announcement that I have to make. Please carry on, Mr. Vedam.
Thank you so much. So let me just start by saying that I am super thrilled to see 100 plus people on the call today. And I have my assumptions on why that is, but we'll get to that in a minute. So what I want to talk to you today about is somewhat a personal journey that I went through. I was an engineer out of campus, like many of us, many of you, and spent more than a decade working in an amazing company called Sun Microsystems. I'm sure many of you remember that company. And that company was bought over by Oracle. And at the time, I had two choices, like many of my colleagues, right? And one of the choice was, of course, continue with Oracle or quit and join another company, because at the time Oracle as a company had a different reputation of being engineer friendly, right? It's a fantastic company, it's an amazing company, but coming from Sun Microsystems, there were apprehensions about whether the emphasis on engineering would be as much as not. And I'm a hardcore geek at heart. So with that choices, I started understanding two things. Now, while being an engineer, like many of us, your internal forums, your email lists, where there are questions about products from customers, from the sales teams, from the marketing teams. And because you spend time and learn about the product, you're able to answer those questions. You get somewhat recognized by the larger teams. And as a result of that, I used to be called for lots of customer meetings, right? And I'm pretty sure many of you are in that situation. And you get called for customer meetings primarily because either the sales or pre-sales want some representative from engineering to give confidence to the customer, saying that, look, if the engineer is saying something, it is the truth. You may not believe the sales guy or the pre-sales guy, but they will believe the engineer. So pretty much I used to be that person. But also another interesting thing that I learned is, while you have these conversations with the customer and they talk to you about their challenges, their issues, their problems, often I used to come back to the team and talk about, hey, you know what, this is a customer that they're running into the issue. How can we fix this, right? So always the thinking is on a problem solving approach, right? So as engineers, we are problem solvers. When you see a problem, you want to solve that problem. But what I want to talk to you today about is making a shift from engineering to product management takes a slightly different mindset and a different approach. And hence, I wanted to call this as, building the product right, which is most of what engineering is about, right? So you have a problem in front of you, somebody defined the problem well for you, and then we go about and creating solutions for that and building it the right way that it actually solves the problem for the customer. But before that, before you even get to that, there is a whole set of area and activities that happen to even identify whether we should even build this product. What should this product look like, right? So if I were to summarize on the product management aspects of it, the focus is always on why and the what. And then the engineering comes in and talks about how do we solve this problem, right? So the experts in building this are the engineering, but the experts in understanding why do we need to create a product? What problem are you solving? What are the things that we need to do to build a product is all about the product management part of it. And I want to talk through about, as I said, personal journey, few trends that I see, which are very encouraging. And in fact, lots of people you see in product management actually move from engineering for very, very obvious reasons, some obvious and some not, and we can discuss that. So what I'll do is I'll spend little time on the slides, but more time on the Q&A, right? So I encourage all of you, any specific questions, right? So, and it's been more than 13 years since I moved into product management and built some incredible products, right? And the products, that make one proud. And I'm so proud today to say that one of the product that I managed and worked with the team to build is used by 900 million people every day, right? That is something that, gives you immense sense of pride. So part of the reason why people find this role fascinating is the impact that it can create, not just on the business, but even on the users and customers, right? So now, as I said, I think I'm seriously impressed that today is 9:30 in the middle of the week, and I see about 115 of you have joined this call at this time, right? So I'm going to make an assumption as to why that is, and hopefully we'll validate that assumption, right? I'm going to assume that while you have so many other things to do on an evening, and I'm sure there is some nice web series on Netflix or Amazon Prime that you could have watched, or probably even some boring office call that you had. But while there are thousands of people who could have joined, I think kudos to all of you to take the time and join a discussion like this or an interaction like this. And my assumption here is that you are all uncomfortable with your comfortable life, right? Which means that you're all looking to do something more. There is that eagerness, there is that ambition, there is that enthusiasm. While you may have, many of you have very, probably a good positions and jobs today, there is that desire to do more, right? So that's my assumption. But why make an assumption? And just like a product manager, a true product manager, I want to validate this assumption a little bit. So here is a quick poll that I'm going to launch you. It takes 30 seconds. So you guys help me tell me what is the main driver for you to join this call today, right? And that way, what I want to do is emphasize on some other parts and de-emphasize on some things, and also look at specific questions that you may have in this particular role, and see how you can make the transition with practical steps, right? I personally prefer to be very specific and prescriptive about things, so I'll do my best to give it to you, right? So interesting. I think, one thing I was pretty sure that we wouldn't have responses for the last one, and I'm glad that we don't have it. But it is definitely fascinating to see that so many of you are actively considering transitioning into product management role, and why not, right? And we look at some of the reasons why this is a very critical role. Many organizations look at it as a very strategic role. And not only that, from a compensation perspective, from a career path perspective, it is one of the hot roles. And in my personal opinion, it is going to continue for a very long time, right? So, and being in engineering, many of you, as I said, are problem solvers. It gives you a nice segue into managing products which are technology based, right? Often you also see people moving into this role from different functions, but in my view, engineering is one of those roles. And again, the journey that I took is not accidental. In fact, a lot of product managers will tell you who come from engineering, they'll say, I accidentally fell into this role. But in my case, it was more deliberate, right? And I'll talk about that story later if we need it. But there is a set of steps that I took, and with the guidance of a mentor and a coach that helped me took that. And 12 years ago, I made that transition. There is not a single day I'm happy for that decision. So what I'll do for the next 15-20 minutes is talk about 3 trends that I see in the industry today, which are triggers and actually drivers for you guys, all of you who are expressing interest to transition into product management. And then I'll share 3 lessons that I have learned in the last, there are many lessons, of course, but I wanted to pick 3 here in the interest of time and leave a lot more to the Q&A, right? So let's begin with few things. And these are not completely new, but I wanted to relate these with what you are doing today. right? The first one is, obviously this is a generic statement, products are being built differently. Now, what does that mean, right? If any of you have been working in companies that have been building products for, let's say, 7, 10 years, you would have noticed a significant difference on how the teams are structured, and the development processes, the software development life cycles especially, have changed from traditional waterfall onto agile, right? Now, the agile model is not just about being iterative and incremental and faster to the market. That is definitely the goal, right? But more importantly, I'm sure many of you have observed that the days where there used to be an engineering manager, there is a QA manager, and then both of them have teams, and then both of them decide that this is going to take 3 months, and then QA will start, and then QA will take another 2 months or 1.5 months, and then we'll build the product and then ship it out to the customer, hope and pray that it works, right? Now, what you have is self-organizing teams, right? You actually have in a Scrum or whatever a methodology that you use, Kanban or Scrum, you actually have cross-functional teams. You have representation from not just engineering, but also design, marketing in some cases, and product managers, and in many cases product marketing, because they would like to understand how to communicate the value of the product that you're building to the market, so that they work on their set of activities, right? So which means that today it is not just enough to be an awesome engineer. It is very important to have a cross-functional understanding of what other people do, and in some cases working knowledge, right? For example, design. And it's now so important that products are being differentiated on the basis of design. While you have designers who actually design these products, as a product manager, it is important to have that skill to have meaningful conversations with them. So that is, there are a lot of other changes in how products are built. I wanted to highlight one particular part of it. The second, again, a lot of you have seen the transition, and many companies are going through that transition. Earlier, products used to be built and then provided to customers. They go through installations, configuration. There is an army of services team or implementation team, if you will. They go into this customer and spend 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. I know Oracle products used to take, some of the products take 6 months to configure and set it up and everything, right? But now, you're all familiar with the delivery model of cloud, right? Now, obviously, there's fantastic benefits for the customer, right? It's a great delivery model, no complexity in terms of deployment, in terms of managing, in terms of operations cost. So, but huge complexity for the product teams, right? For example, think of the integrations that used to be done for on-premise products, multiple integrations. Now, if you deploy the same product on the cloud, the integrations need to be based on a completely different approach, right? The connectors, the APIs. So new roles have emerged in product management. You got API product manager. And by the way, since as a company, as a team, you are hosting and managing these products, you are now in a position to collect huge amount of data, right? Now, data is obviously playing a very critical role in making certain decisions in product. So now, as you know, when you deploy this on cloud, whether it's a platform, SaaS, or anything, you are in a position to collect this information and do it. And now that requires a very different approach to thinking about how to build products. No longer is, okay, let's build something, let's do a QA and throw it off to the customer and wait for bugs, right? Now, most often internal teams have become first customers, right? So it's a very different paradigm, not just for the customers who are consuming these services, but also for people who are building and delivering it. And with an engineering mindset, you now need to start thinking in terms of how do we define the interfaces? How do you define these interactions? How do we define what data to collect? What are we going to use that data for? All of these are very important, right? And it's only increasing in importance. The third trend I want to bring, and it's not a surprise to many of us who have been in product management. I've led large product teams, a portfolio of 8 to 10 products, hired many product managers in my journey. And it was not surprising for me to see that majority of the people who are moving, especially in technology companies, right, are moving from the engineering background to this. Why? Because, one, familiarity with the product. Two, a deeper understanding of what is the best way to solve a problem, right? And that is definitely a plus point when you come from engineering. Now, not only that, I think what is fascinating, and this is the research that, in fact, State of Product Management report by Pendo. Pendo is, sorry, Product Plan is a company that creates road mapping software, is the salary part, right? Now, this is, again, not a surprising thing to me, but maybe for many of you, right? An average salary today for a senior product manager with about 10 plus years experience, 10 to 12 years experience, is 40 lakhs, right? And that's not surprising anymore, because I see even today regularly on a daily basis that these are the kind of offers that come. So there is a huge differential when you move from engineering into product management. So no wonder there is an incredible demand and also competition to move into product management roles, right? So these are the three, quick trends I wanted to bring to see. It is definitely an area that every engineer, and again, when I say every engineer, if you love being in engineering, building products, developing solutions, fantastic role. Keep at it, right? I'm not suggesting or encouraging everybody to move there. I think often what happens is many people who are in engineering see their growth path linearly and look at it and say, okay, now I've been an engineer, developer, QA for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. The natural path seems to be become a manager, right? Now there are many other options. And I think if you love technology, if you love problem solving, and if you want to be part of the teams that create something that solves market problem, there is no better role today in the market than product management, right? So with that, I wanted to share a few learnings, right? So three learnings that I have. But there are a lot of cliches about product management role. Before I get into the learning, I wanted to demystify a couple of things, provide some clarity, at least from my perspective, what this role entails, right? Now, you may have heard of these cliches like product manager is a CEO of the product, he's the owner of the product and janitor of the product, all kinds of cliches. Now, I don't want to comment on them, but a fundamental job, a fundamental responsibility of a product manager is to drive the product vision, not create the product vision often. Of course, it gets created with the leadership teams, at a higher level in the organization, but drive that vision, drive the strategy, and more importantly, execute on the strategy, right? So just because you're a product manager doesn't mean that you are not connected with execution. You are very much connected on a day-to-day basis, and especially into product owner roles, right? You hear product owner roles often. So this is in my view, a very simple way of understanding what the responsibilities is of a product manager. But there are a set of activities that typical product manager does in a company, right? And these can be summarized into three, I've grouped them into three areas. One is, building the product, of course, right? And as I said, not just building the product right, but also building the right product, and building a business plan, because now you are responsible for getting that approvals, getting that funding, resources to basically create a product that solves market problem, right? Again, not everyone get to play in this. There are different levels and grades in different companies that allows to do it, but this is one of the core activity of a product manager, right? The second one is finding the right champions, and this is absolutely true, especially in big companies, right? In large companies, you really need to find people who will support you, and I'll talk about who those set of people are. And every time you're going to, let's say, build a new product or add new features to existing products, there is often this question that comes that says, what is the ROI? What is the return on investment that we will get if we add this particular feature into it? In fact, if you go to even finance terms, it's called internal rate of return, but let's not complicate things right now, right? So these are the three main categories, if you will. And the first one, right, in the area of, the reason why I'm bringing this is, the change in mindset, the thinking, the new set of approach and skills that are required for engineers must be obvious in our conversation here, right? Now, first thing is customer insights. Often as engineers, we are a bit reluctant to be directly part of customer conversations, understand what their journey is in solving a particular problem or a workflow or anything. We tend to assume, right, a lot of things because we think we know that particular area. but it's a biggest mistake, right? So customer insighting is a very specific area where a product manager spends along with user researchers to identify the insights, right? And understand the pain points that the customer go through so that you can now translate them. And how do you translate them? These days, the products are being built in a very interesting way. I'm sure many of you have heard of the acronym called MVP, right? Minimum viable product, which is basically nothing but an experiment that is created. You implement a certain piece of it with the goal of learning something, but at the same time, you're providing value to the customer. And this is actually very tricky. So one of the key activities of a product manager is to define these MVPs, define the goals of the MVPs, define these experiments, and work with the development teams and engineering teams to create these experiments, provide it to the customers, and then get feedback and do learnings, right? In the finding the right champions part, as I'm mentioning, that you really need in big companies and executive buy-in. Often in small companies, founder are easily accessible. You can go brainstorm and do that. But in large companies, you have hierarchies, you have different stakeholders with different vested interests, by the way, right? Often we call this as politics or anything, but whatever we call, it is important. And hence, winning the trust of the design team, of the engineering team, of the sales team, this becomes really important, right? And I was telling you guys about sales teams constantly calling me to accompany them to visit customers, right? And that helps you in build that relationships, because next time when you want them to communicate about a particular product, about the value it creates to a set of customers, it is easy to have that conversation, right? So ultimately, most of the product's goal is revenue, right? And there are lots of complexities about revenue, which certain product managers play a role. But think of this as 3 different categories and different activities that you do in those categories for a product role. So moving on, 3 learnings, right? In my 23 plus years of career, of which half of it is engineering, half of it is product management, I want to distill this into 3, right? The first one is please build cross-functional understanding, right? As I mentioned, it is also becoming an imperative now to sit with different stakeholders, different team members to come to a consensus whether you can build this particular thing in a defined time frame or not, right? This is what we talked about Scrum or anything. Now, when you say building cross-functional understanding, there are certain competencies in my view, right? And cross-functional competencies, it's important to understand. And you can group them as customer context, right? As engineers, many of us are in what I call as an innovation context, right? Which means you are unearthing solutions, you're identifying ways to solve problems differently, in a better way, in a cheaper way. But there are other contexts that are going to be absolutely critical. Now, I'm saying this not only because it is important for a product manager role. Even if you want to be an effective engineering leader, right? These are going to be an absolutely critical skills. Customer context is all about, as I said, uncovering the latent needs or hidden needs, or even obvious and blatant needs from customers, to see what is it that you can solve. Then, is it worth solving, right? Is the opportunity big enough for you to go ahead, spend that resources, time, money, energy to even solve the problem by building a solution? So those come under the business context. And I mentioned, we're all familiar with innovation context. And then you have process context and market context. The market context is trying to understand the landscape, right? The landscape is all about who are the other players, what are they doing better, and how is customer perceiving us? And often people call this as competitive analysis, right? But that's only one part of it. So these are certain areas and competencies that one needs to learn, one needs to get equipped with or acquire these things to be able to transition effectively into product roles. Now, clearly, you don't need to be expert in all these things to move in. In fact, as I mentioned at the top of the hour, that when I made my journey into product management, the first thing that I wanted to know is, what the heck is product management? What is needed for me to get good at it? At least know what I should do. And today, if you look at it, there is huge amount of information, right? Immense amount of information in blogs, in videos, in courses, and everywhere. And it can also be overwhelming because, how do you put the pieces of the puzzle together? And hence thinking of it in acquiring these skills in a very structured way is going to save you a lot of frustration and time, believe me. And I've gone through this personally and trying to understand, okay, you're talking about this market research. Now, where does competitive analysis come into picture? Should I do this before or after, right? All kinds of questions like this sometimes are baffling, right? And hence, looking at this from a structured way, put the pieces of the puzzle together, and understanding these competencies is going to be a prerequisites to get into product management role. Now, second, learning. This is a little bit controversial, but I absolutely believe it. And I spent a lot of my day in coaching people who are either in product management roles or moving into it. And clearly, this is come as an evidence to us, right? Now, you can decorate your resume as much as you want. You can add lots of keywords to it. But today, if you really want to make a transition into product role, a very important strategy that you need to adopt is, how do I build a portfolio to demonstrate? How do I differentiate myself from the crowd that is there? Think about it, right? If there is a company that posts a job on LinkedIn, within 3 to 4 hours, there are 200, 400 applicants. Now, what is stopping any one of them to decorate the resume with all the keywords that are required? Pretty much everybody can do it. So how are you going to differentiate in that particular context? And the best way is learn these skills, acquire these competencies, along the way, build a product portfolio. Now, designers know this intuitively, right? They've been doing this for a long time. And this is not complicated, right? It is, let's say you learn the skill of pricing. And then nothing is stopping you from looking at an existing product or a company and then saying that this is how I would think about pricing. That is nothing but demonstrating the skill that you have learned in the context of an idea or a product or a project. And by doing this, you are instantly differentiating yourself in the market. So please focus more on demonstration of the skills or building a portfolio that you can demonstrate, less on the 3-letter, 4-letter, 5-letter acronyms that you may get. Now, there's nothing wrong about certifications, but my personal view is, don't bet your career on those things, or don't bet transitions on those things. It will help you in some context, but not the primary thing that you should be looking at, right? So, and the final thing, and this is a bit tricky for especially engineers, because I know I've been there. Many engineers are not extroverts. They like to keep themselves and their computer and their brain and continue to chug away. But at a certain point in your career, in fact, who you know becomes even more important than what you know. So please, all of you, make conscious effort to start building a network, right? Now, when I say that, I don't mean just going to LinkedIn and saying connect with somebody, right? Now, sure, that is a way to start that network or interaction, but provide meaningful, useful contributions to the people that you are connecting to, so that at some point in time, you can leverage, you can ask for favors, you can ask for help, you can ask for guidance, and all of those things. And I can tell you with absolute confidence, this is what will help you in those career transitions, right? So now, are people applying these things? Are people doing these things? Absolutely, right? As I said, I see this on a daily basis. Engineers especially, you need to start thinking from working on projects or products to creating customer experiences. Customer centricity is the name, is the game to be in. And customer centricity is the first thing that anybody would look at from a product management perspective as well. Start building a portfolio of demonstrable assets, showcase that portfolio, and then you will automatically differentiate yourself in the eyes of the hiring managers, right? Now, all of this requires some effort, obviously, right? It's not something that you want to transition, it happens. But a prerequisite for this, in my view, is a fundamental mindset shift and skill sets acquisition, right? Reskill yourselves with a new set of skills, and upskill yourself. Now, often there is a question about, what about the new technologies, AI, BI, CI, blockchain, ML, and all of that. All of them are great. right? And if you have the appetite, if you have the interest, you should learn it with the intent that you may use that at some point in time in building your products or projects, but not with the intent of that you, just because you did some ML course, you are going to be competing with somebody with 3 years, 4 years experience. And that is not a reality, right? Let's face it. There are lots of advantages that young professionals come with. But at the same time, if you are somebody with experience, with 5 years, 10 years experience, my suggestion is leverage that experience, right? And there are many ways to do that. So with that, I would like to open up for questions. And, I think that's the main intent of having this. But I wanted to kickstart this, give some context so that you spur this question. So I'd appreciate if you guys can just, ask the question on the microphone. But if you are shy and if you want to ask on the chat, that is fine as well. And we'll try to take as much as possible.
Right. Audience, please go ahead and ask your questions right away. And you can raise your hand and I shall unmute you for asking questions if you want to come live. And like Mr. Vedam said, do not shy away. Let's make the best of this session. So we have a few hands raised. Oh, so many of them. Right. So let's start with Pankaj Goel.
Yeah.
Pankaj, please go ahead and ask your question.
So who drives, as you said, the product manager drives the vision. So, and you said the vision is created by the leadership team. So that could be the director of product or somebody in the product leadership, or it could be business, somebody in the business hierarchy. So who actually creates that
Good
product?
question. Good question. See, actually, product management is a business role as well, right? A very important business, bring in the business context into the product. So often the vision is set by what we call as leadership teams. In some companies, it is strongly influenced by the head of products. But also it comes down from the CEO or CIO or CFO, depending on the type of industry that you're in. But if you're a strong company with strong product focus, then it is definitely influenced by the head of products.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj, for coming forward. Next question, Kiran. Please go ahead and ask a question.
Thanks for the session. I really appreciate, because it was really very much informative. And I have a question, like you, because I know this is a topic related to the engineering too for the product manager.
Mm-hmm.
But can you also tell us, like, because I'm a senior UI UX designer, so can you also tell me something about a few lines about coming back, like switching career from UX to product manager?
Sure. I think you may have paid attention to that slide that I showed on what was your previous role, and you saw UX UI is actually slightly higher than engineering, right? Which is kind of surprising to me.
And even in the sorry to interrupt, even in this, like you have given a survey, right? Even in that, you see the most of the people also like to choose, like in the picture also which you shared.
That's exactly what I was referring to. Right. In fact, when I led product teams, we also had the privilege of hiring designers. Now, a lot of designers moving into product management totally makes sense today, right? And the reason I kind of mentioned this in the passing, but if you look at it, how are products, especially digital products, right? How are they being differentiated in the market today? Right? Everybody can build amazing features, capabilities, performance, scale, and all of that, which is not easy, by the way. It's still difficult. But if you see some of the most inspiring products today that are used, their differentiator is user experience.
UX designers.
Right?
True.
UX is absolutely critical for a success of a product. Now, many UX teams, in fact, unfortunate situation this is, are today in organization where people want UX, people appreciate a good UX, but still they don't have a decision-making role at the table. And this is causing a little bit of change and kind of frustration among the designers.
You always have a debate with project managers also.
Correct, right? So hence, I think there is a strong attempt from designers to move into the decision-making role of product management, where now you bring in a designer perspective, right? Now, designer perspective is all about bringing the customer context, right? Who is this person? Who is this persona? What are they trying to do? What is their environment like? What kind of solutions to build to do that? So absolutely. I think that's a fantastic path to move into, Kiran.
Thank you, Kiran. So we'll take this next question from Aina Kapoor.
Sure.
Aina, please come forward and ask your question.
Hello.
Hi, Anna.
Yeah, hi Surat. So my question is that I have, my question is a little different from your current presentation. So I am from sales background,
Yes, thank you so much.
B2B sales. I have been into this profile from past almost 5 years now.
Mhm.
So now I'm looking to switch to product management profile. So I just want to understand from you how difficult or easy would it be, and if I want to do so, what should my next steps be, and
Yeah.
and where do I start from?
Yeah. Now, often we product managers like to think ourselves as being closest to the customers, right? But we are only fooling ourselves. In reality, the role, the function that is closest to the customers is sales, right? You know, because the relationships that sales builds and the point of contact, the first point of contact, be it an account team, be it the sales rep from the customer, is often sales, right? There are some customer support, that is true, but still when they need an individual interaction, that is the first one. So I think sales is well positioned to understand the realities of the customer. And often today what happens is, when they bring that reality into the product teams, it is often viewed through the lens of a particular deal, right? Now, while that is not a bad thing, that is not necessarily enough. It's a necessary but not a sufficient condition for the product team to take notice and make any changes, new direction or new capabilities or anything. But if you come from a sales background, that point of view, that perspective is going to be incredibly important, right? And you can bring that. I have many great friends who have moved from sales, pre-sales, and even marketing into product management. But like transitioning from one functional role to another, I think what I've outlined before in terms of how you should start thinking in terms of the competencies that are required, and how do you start acquiring these competencies, and along the way, how do you approach the opportunities that you have, right? If you're going to apply to a product management role with your sales experience and resume as a factor, the chances of that getting the attention of the hiring manager are low, right? And hence I keep emphasizing that you flip it and say, while your resume or your title says sales, now you have an accompaniment in the form of a demonstrable asset, and that is really, really going to turn the tables around. So definitely it is possible to do that.
Sure.
Thank you, Aina, for that question. Mr. Vedam, let's take a few questions from the Q&A section now, because they're getting anxious.
Oh, I'm
So
sure.
this question is from Rohit. What is the growth and trajectory in product management? Just like in engineering, we know the trajectory from a developer to a senior developer, and then we have architects or engineering managers with an end goal of becoming a CTO.
Yeah.
So what is it for product management?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, a very similar trajectory exists. And in fact, so here is a fun thing to think about, right? If you look at many technology companies around you, right, big ones, in fact, Adobe, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, a lot of things that you know and use every day, including LinkedIn and all of that. 5 years before, companies, CEOs of companies like this used to come from one function: sales, predominantly sales. Now you look at it, they are coming from products. Pretty much every CEO of very good tech companies are product persons. So the growth path to that, eventually, you start with, some companies offer, either a product owner or an associate product manager as an entry level into product management. But then PM, senior PM, group PM, and then director PM. So until you get to the director of product management, it is usually an individual contributor role. So if you're a kind of a person who wants to manage people, who loves to, work with the teams reporting to you, this may be slightly wrong path for you, right? Because a product manager needs to focus their energies on spending time and understanding the market, understanding the customer, and bringing that insights back to build that product, and less on managing people. But when you get to the director of products is when you will have product, people management responsibilities, along with, in some companies, P&L responsibility, right? Now that is a very powerful thing. you actually now can influence the business outcomes, right? Profit and loss of things. Then, same senior director, vice president, CPO is essentially the pinnacle, if you will, unless of course companies, co-founders, founders become successful and big companies and they become CEOs. But CPO is where the growth path is. So hopefully that explains that question.
All right. So we'll take this next question from Neeta Prakash. Neeta, please come forward and ask your question.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for that opportunity. I have two questions basically. One is more or less similar to another person who have asked over here. How to make that makeshift transfer from, so I'm basically from project management. I was a developer and then moved on to project management. So how to make that makeshift transfer from a project manager to a product manager? So that's my first question. And basically then my second question would be, we ought to hear so many things that is being used by the product management, like the roadmap, the strategies, mission, etc. So what is the steps? What is the first step, 1, 2, 3 sort of a thing that when we move into a product management that we have to follow?
Sure. I will try to keep it short because believe me, if I start talking about it, we will need many hours. And I think there were also previous webinars from IPL that covered those in great depth, right? So I do remember doing that a few weeks ago or months ago. But I'll try to address your question as succinctly as possible. Now, every hiring manager who's hiring a person into products, right? Now remember, product role is a strategic role, meaning that they will be empowered with decision-making abilities. Now, the sphere of influence, the sphere of decision-making will start small, but gradually grow into revenue, right? Slowly, it might start with saying, what should we build? Of the 20 things that are there in the backlog, which are the top 3 things that we should prioritize and build? So that is also decision-making, but in a smaller context. So any hiring manager who is looking to hire a person into product roles is going to evaluate that person in 3 areas, right? One is the domain skills. Domain skills includes whether you're from e-commerce, financial services, networking, security, messaging, or whatever it is. The second one is on the functional skills. If you are coming from engineering, how well do you understand technology? How can you apply technology to solve new problems? If you're coming from project management, how do you leverage your abilities of coordination, managing time, resources, and budgets, and those things. And the third one is on the leadership part. Leadership, of course, is a very broad umbrella, but there are 2 or 3 things which are very critical. One is, as a product manager, your job is to work with the cross-functional stakeholders, and none of them report to you. And hence, what is very important is your ability to influence them, right? So influencing skills, negotiation skills, and if you were to take away anything from this discussion today, the number one and the most important skills is communication, the art of storytelling, the presentation skills, right? So now every hiring manager is evaluating this. Some of you may be strong in domain, which means that your other dials need to be up leveled. Some of you may be strong in functional skills, which means the other 2 need to be up leveled. Now, how do you do it? I gave a really quick one is identify the right set of competencies, acquire those competencies. While you are learning those skills, build a portfolio, start demonstrating it, and put yourself in a context where you can, there are many places where companies come to hire without basically saying that, hey, do you have a prior product management experience, right? Absolutely possible. So, I can have a long detailed conversation subsequently on that, but hopefully that gives you a quick overview. Now, coming to the role, as I said, there are 20 to 23 areas, big areas that typically product management spends, but at different levels. Now, a product owner, and I saw one question, what's the difference, product owner and product manager? A fundamental difference is product owner is inward focusing, defining the requirements, defining the definition of done, providing that clarity to the teams, and making sure that the teams are building to that definition, right? Often they are not involved in prioritization. Prioritization is a very complex area. It includes multiple factors and inputs that come in that as a product manager you need to consider before prioritizing what, right? So otherwise every other day a salesperson comes and says we lost the deal because we don't have this feature, and suddenly you panic and say okay, let's prioritize that fee, right? So that's not how it works. So prioritization is important. And a key activity a product manager does upwards managing the leadership teams or stakeholders is using roadmaps as a strategic tool to communicate the direction that we are heading. How are we meeting the vision? What is the progression that you are making? So real quick summary on that. Hopefully that answers your question.
Sure. Thanks a lot for that.
Sure.
Audience, while we are trying to answer as many questions, but I recommend that you scan this QR code to get a one-on-one session with Mr. Vedam, and you can get all your product management questions answered this way. While moving on to the next question, Mr. Vedam will take it from the Q&A.
Yeah. Do you want me to pick, or are you going to pick, Shama?
I'm just picking. So if you can, please go ahead.
There are too many
That would be of great
to
help.
pick one, right? So yeah.
Right.
No, go ahead.
Okay, we'll take this question from Nishant.
Yeah.
I'm a founder of startup which is into health and fitness industry. So we are currently in our MVP phase, which will be done within a week. Before that, we conducted some user research with 20 plus candidates. How do we know when to stop with research, and should we consider the monetary value the solution will bring while building the MVP?
Now, this is an awesome question, something that is very close to my heart. Nishant, maybe we can discuss this later, but first of all, congratulations on your entrepreneurship venture. That is something that is close to my heart as well. I try to think of MVP as a goal, right? What is the goal of your MVP? What is it that you really want to validate or learn from the customer? Because as part of your user research, you have uncovered certain insights, and you may have made certain assumptions, which you convert them into hypotheses. But then, you create an experiment that you want your customer to participate in, because they will get some value, and in the process, you're going to learn. So the answer saying, when do we stop? Honestly, you only stop when all your assumptions are validated, which is a very long time, because continuously you're making certain assumptions. So it's a continuous process, but the prioritization of these experiments should be based on the risk that they pose to your business model, right? So higher the risk, you prioritize them higher, start early, and then slowly the ones that you do later are less risky ones.
Okay, so the next question is from Nitin.
Yeah.
I don't have a technical background. I'm a product manager, but have only been working on product strategy, vision, and roadmaps. How should I transition to a product owner role? What software engineering skills and knowledge should I know of to stand on an equal footing with engineering folks transitioning to product management?
Okay. Now, this is a common question. And again, I think maybe the question was asked before I kind of provided my response. The way to think about this is the three dials, right? A domain, functional, and leadership. Now, if you are good at a particular functional area and you're not an engineer, you're not a technical person, what is very important is that you establish a trust and relationship with the engineering teams. This is very important, because I've seen this often too many times, that somebody who moves in from engineering, who has a technical understanding into product management role, keep poking their understanding and finger into what engineering comes back and says. If they come back and say that, look, it's going to take 3 weeks, suddenly the engineer in this person will wake up and say, why will it take 3 weeks? I can do it in 2 weeks. I'm sure you're unnecessarily giving extra estimates and all of that. Now, that's a bad way of approaching things. So which means whether you are a technical person or not, you are going to work with the engineering teams, and who are the experts who are going to solve these problems, right? Implement solutions to solve this problem. So you bringing in the customer perspective, you bringing in being the ambassador of the customer, market perspective, business context, saying that what is the business impact that it will have if we do this or don't do this. Those are the things the engineering teams will truly appreciate. So leverage on those strengths, and you can be transparent and open about saying that, look, I am not a technical person, so I'm going to defer all the technical decisions that you're going to make to you because I'm trusting you guys, right? And that's the right way to do it. So approach it that way.
Right. I hope, Priti, that answers your question. Taking the next question now, Professor Vedam. What if we have done all the preparation knowledge-wise and start applying to product manager openings? Chances are that the resume won't get selected even if we put all the keywords.
Yep.
So how can that be dealt with? How to get interview calls to start with?
Yep. Great question. And I think, again, I will emphasize what I said and probably elaborate a little bit more. If you follow the traditional route of resume, and maybe you learned some new skills and you added them to the resume, and you are going to apply, as I said, you are one among 200 people. And because it's humanly impossible for the hiring teams to actually manually scan the resumes, there are filter bots that are applied, and yours may be lucky or not, right? And hence, do not hope and bet on that approach. The best way is what I was talking about, right? One is build your portfolio of assets, which means when you're learning, let's say, a particular skill like market analysis. Right now, in market analysis, there is something called market sizing, which is about calculating total addressable market, segmented addressable market, and share of market, right? TAM, SAM, SOM. Now, if you learn the skill of how to do that, nothing is stopping you from actually looking at, let's say, Amazon grocery delivery and coming up with a TAM, SAM, SOM with your understanding and posting that on a LinkedIn or creating a 2-minute video, and that becomes your demonstrable asset. So now you have instantly differentiated from all the people who say, I know how to do market sizing. Number one. Number two is volunteer for projects. Volunteer for internships within your company or outside your company. This is very, very important. There are lots of startups in this country who are more than happy to have you and work on a small challenge, small product challenge that you can help them as a company and you can learn in the process. So these are two very common and popular ways that I at least communicate and encourage people to do this, and it yields great results.
In view of time constraints, Mr. Veda, we'll have to take this one last question.
Sure,
And I will ask Vishal Kashyap to come online and ask his question.
Sure.
Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes,
Yes, Vishal.
I can, Vishal.
What I see, the questions that have come over here in the forum is most related to the software path. I come from an electronics path wherein I'm a fire safety engineer, and I got fascinated by the product management course just because one of my colleague in the regional, he did this course, and now he's leading a product in the for the fire systems. So what I want to understand here is, now it seems like the audience over here is also all about softwares. So I just wanted to know, how do you apply these principles, product management principles, into the fire safety industry? And I do not, and would you be able to give some examples where the products of electronics industry have been used?
Interesting thing. Product management as a discipline, as a functional role, did not originate from software at all, right? It originated from what Unilever used to call this as brand managers, right? That is the genesis of the role of a product manager. Now, of course, it is very popular in technology industry, but any industry which builds this product, any product, right? I mean, the simple way I want you to think about it, although it is common sense, but when we take a pause and start thinking, why does a product exist? I mean, why does a phone exist? Why does a headset exist? Because it tries to solve a problem or addresses a need for a set of people in the market, right? So a fundamental job of a person who understands what are those needs, what are those pain points that anybody is going through in completing a particular job, is essentially a product manager, right? If I were to summarize, the role is a customer-facing business decision-making role. Now, if you happen to build technology products, you use technology. But if you happen to build semiconductors, there are some fantastic companies with product management functions in semiconductors. Texas Instruments, Qualcomm, Intel, filled with people with product managers, right? So it is now, how does the same skills, I think, there may be several skills that are very specific to the digital technologies, right? These days it is not easy to hide from those buzzwords that you hear, like data product management, AI and ML product management, and lots of acronyms about metrics. But traditionally, products have been built by product managers in pretty much every industry. And the customer context, business context, innovation context, market context are absolutely relevant in all these industries.
How about a guy from from this fire industry moving into a software one? Would that be a possibility, given the skills that are taught in product management, or the domain expertise
Yes.
percentage
So
wise would
remember
be?
that if you can find a technology company, I'm not saying software, remember, so software is one aspect of the technology. If there is a set of companies, technology companies that are in that domain, or in fact, if you essentially perceive yourself to be a leader, and leader in not just number of people reporting to you, but your ability to influence people on how they should start thinking in terms of markets, how they should start thinking in terms of what kind of problems to solve. There are many to solve, right? If you're able to, now you have an advantage. Now, of course, still the core product skills are going to be required for anyone to understand, because it's more than just skills, right? It's a mindset change. And that, I think, I'm afraid, one thing that I will leave all of you with is, while we work for a decade plus or so, we learn a lot of things. And what I've learned and want to encourage all of you to think about is, to get into product management, you need to unlearn a lot of things and relearn new things, right? So that is a challenging part, but it is absolutely doable.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yep. So, Mr. Vedam, I know we have already crossed the time, but I would like to ask you one last question. And because we have been getting this question repeatedly, I want you to answer that. So this is in regards to the Flex program on ICPM offered by the Institute. And also in relation to that, how do you build demonstrable skills as you keep transitioning into product management? This is from
No, I think the IPL's ICPM Flex is a very interesting configuration if you look at it, right? It's a flex program, meaning that it is decoupled from any location. People can join from any time, any place, at any time. By the way, it's a rolling program. It's a continuous program. So you can join in today, tomorrow, anybody can join in. And the way that this program is structured is, there are 5 curated skills that have been handpicked based on the most impact that it provides to the participants in terms of job transitions, right? Career transitions. And these are really, really important skills today that are, IPL goes to several industry practitioners and leaders and asks this very simple question. If you are to hire somebody into your company in this role, what are we doing right? Or what are we doing? What are we not doing? And incorporated that. So the design is based on that part. So which means it's a self-paced learning, but live faculty session led, right? Every week there is a live faculty session, and the faculty are all industry practitioners. These are the people who, perform their jobs as senior product managers, directors, and vice presidents in different companies, in product marketing, in design, in product management, and digital product management as well, right? So these are faculty. Now, but what I, when I interact with some of the participants as a coach, the feedback that I get is, the unlimited one-on-one coaching and mentoring that is available to all the participants to get their individual doubts cleared, either in the skills or in the career path, seems to be very, very highly valued by the participants, right? And the final thing I want to end with is, a lot of participants in these programs don't come with a product management title in their resume. So now, but if you look at it, there is a career assistance program that is there, where hiring managers from various companies come to IPL to hire from these participants, right? The product talent that you have, with the understanding and acknowledgement that they don't have prior product management experience, but we are confident that these participants have now acquired the skills and they can showcase that in the challenge that we are going to give them. So they will typically give a product challenge and give a couple of days for the interested people in that company, in that role. And then when they come and present it, they evaluate, shortlist, and make offers, right? So that is exactly how companies are changing to hire into product roles. So in that context, it is less important if you have prior product management experience. Of course, it is important at a senior roles, but otherwise, most of the people are looking for what can you deliver, what can you contribute, what value can you bring as a product manager into my organization. So hopefully that gives some quick context about the program.
All right. So in view of the time constraints, we have to end the Q&A here. Thanks for the participation, audience. It was great interacting with you all. Love the energy. But product management is not a subject that you can get answers to within an hour. And hence, we have made various platforms available to answer your queries. You can book a session, 30-minute session with our faculty, or reach out to us on our website for detailed information on the ICPM Flex program. Thank you, Mr. Vedam, for taking the time off of your busy schedule and share your valuable insights.
I think, I want to apologize to people whose questions we couldn't ask, but again, you have different ways to get those answered. So, good luck and all the best to all of you, and good night.
Audience, please scan this QR code for your 30-minute session with Mr. Vedam and get all your questions answered for product management. So thank you for joining in. It was great interacting with you all. And do not forget to register for our upcoming Insights 21 webinar session, which is on 27th of Jan. And with that note, I end tonight's session. Happy learning and stay skilled. Have a great night.